It's not compiled by Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, it's compiled by his father, Bhaktivinoda Thakur. This was apparently one of his favourite bhajans. He sang this morning Shri Rupa Manjari, Yashomati Nandan. I'm not sure if he sang it this morning, but that's another one of his favourites songs. He had internal, say, very confidential songs also, but they were not sung in public. But in public these songs were amongst his favourites. Gopinath was another one. And especially songs which help us to point out our shortcomings, you could say. Areas where we could improve on. Where we have what's called anarthas, or unnecessary material ambitions and desires which block our progress in spiritual life. They keep us entangled in this world like anchors in the ground. When we're trying to move a boat, we have the anchor in the ground. So the anchors have to be released in order for the boat to progress. These material desires, although we may be attached to them, we may not consider it like that, but they are obstacles in our progress in spiritual life. They have to be, materially speaking, we have to understand, we have to root them out. They can be utilized sometimes in Krishna's service. And especially we have the tendency for, this evening we're going to talk a little bit about kirtan, chanting, from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. Especially this tendency to see ourselves as the enjoyer. This is quite normal in the beginning, to see ourselves as we judge things according to my pleasure, likes and dislikes. And the process of devotional service is one of purification of that perception or one's conception of the holy name, from seeing the holy name or seeing Krishna as an object of my enjoyment, or seeing the material world as an object of my enjoyment, to seeing everything as Krishna's energy, to be engaged for his pleasure. This is true selflessness, not simply sharing the material assets amongst each other, because they don't belong to us. Sometimes the term is there, honesty among thieves. We're claiming proprietorship of this material world which doesn't really belong to us anyway. And then sometimes we are saying we are very charitable, but we're giving away stolen property. It's never ours to give away. Never ours to decide I like this, I like that. This dualistic mentality is the nature of this world, and as long as we maintain our decision-making process based upon this dualistic perception, and we remain in illusion. So the teachings of the pure devotees of the Lord that they help us to develop the vision, godly vision, seeing how everything is related to the Supreme Godhead. Let us sing this song, Radha Krishna Ball, and a very joyful song, calling upon all of us to chant, everyone chant, 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 Radha Krishna. Everyone chant. You are needlessly, he says, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda are dancing throughout Nadia, that's the area of Bengal, India, giving the teachings to all. Oh brothers, you are needlessly suffering under the control of Maya and being carried away by her waves, sometimes floating, sometimes sinking in the ocean of illusion. if you just understand that the spirit soul is the eternal servant of Krishna, you will never have any more sorrows. And when you chant the holy name of Krishna, your eyes will fill with tears and your body shiver. In transcendental ecstasy, this is what I say. Chant Radha Krishna in the association of devotees. This is all I ask. Bhaktivinoda says, when I chant the holy name of the Lord, all dangers flee. Yeah, enough with this too. Radha Krishna, Bol, 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 Re, So, Radha Krishna, Bol, 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 Re, So, Radha Krishna, Bol, 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 Re, Radha Krishna, Bol, 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 Re, Esikadiya, Sapnadiya, Vichinechi, Gornata, Shikadiya, Sapnadiya, Vichinechi, Gornata, Eshikadiya, Sabnadiya, Deche, Neche, Paranita, Shikadiya, Sabnadiya, Deche, Neche, Paranita, Hare Krishna, Bolare, Bolare, Sabai, Hare Krishna, Krishna Bhavi Javi Polakavi Javi Anki Pori Hai Bhavi Javi Polakavi Javi Anki Pori Hai Krishna Bhavi Javi Polakavi Javi Anki Pori Hai Krishna Bhavi Hare Krishna, Bola, chalo, he matra vinachai. Jai sakala people bhakti vino, bole japa nangai. 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 Krishna bol, 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 re so bhai. Radha Krishna bol, 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 re so bhai. Radha Krishna bol, 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 re so bhai. Radha Krishna bol, 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 re so bhai. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna bol, 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 re so bhai. Radha Krishna bol, bol, re so bhai. Go Premanandi.
Hori, 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 hori,
Bol. So, we'll talk a little bit about the holy name from Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj from the script here, and a few other quotes. But as the chanting of the holy name, you can understand as a central activity, practice of aspirants, let's say, to be a devotee. One time Srila Prabhupada was given a nice poem. This was about 68, 69, and one devotee wrote a poem to Srila Prabhupada, or for Srila Prabhupada. And at the end of every stanza, he wrote, "I just want to be a nice devotee." Very simple. They were very, let's say, beginning in their devotional lives. They're still beginning, but very beginning then. But Srila Prabhupada said this very nice poem, but please change the last line. To be a devotee is very, very, very elevated rarity. He said, please change it. I simply want to become a servant of a devotee. And whenever Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj someone would approach him and say, Dasosmi, I am your servant. I'm not your master. I'm your servant. Although it may appear that these great souls are in the position of directing, sometimes chastising, but only in the mood of service, to help free us from these attachments, these bondage, the knots of material attachment which keep us bound up in this world, to cut that karma grunta, this knot of karma. They may sometimes appear strong. Sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would appear to be, as we heard them this morning, was sometimes known as Singha Guru, lion-like, very strong. Things we hear, probably more we hear about his side of correction than we do about his other side as a apparent sweetness, apparent only from our perspective, which was also that he would cry, many times cried tears, when someone left the mat. It was very sad. He would say things like, the only hope they have is they stay in our association. If they leave our association for whatever reason, what hope do they have? It is our fault. We would all see it as our fault. We were unable to attract them, unable to help them, etc. He would be very compassionate also to his disciples in so many ways. Every way actually, but we're talking from our normal understanding of material, what that is, of kindness, even to the point he would tie up their mosquito nets sometimes, make sure they were all getting sufficient prasadam, etc. So there's another side, every aspect of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj's dealings was personified with compassion. How to save. It's like if a blind man is walking towards the cliff, naturally it behooves us that we'll try to stop them. It may seem like an act of violence that we're grabbing them, pulling, don't go, no, no, let me go, they may say, leave me alone, who are you to stop me? Because we can't see where we're going, we're blind. So they, not for their own benefit, but for our benefit. Sometimes Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj sometimes describe that. The sadhu is one who is following the path of the spiritual path, not just a man with a long beard and long hair and orange clothes, speaks some nice words, no. He's one who is following the path of eternity, the spiritual path, the eternal path. And he wants to awaken this, or give everyone else this opportunity. So sometimes he speaks strong words, and Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj would say sadhu is one who's like this. You don't see it in this country in public, but in many countries you still see, there are even places of so-called worship where animals are slaughtered. The executioner stands over with the knife or the sword to chop the poor animal head or whatever. Executioner. He said somehow you can use this as a comparison. If the sadhu is like that, with harsh words. It doesn't mean harsh in the sense of self-centered. It means it appears from our perspective to be hard, strong words, and trying to wake us up, shake us up. Wake up, you're sleeping in the lap of the witch called Maya. But with strong words, to break or to sever our attachments to this material. This is the sadhu's business. Not to pamper us so that we carry on in our illusion, but to release us from this illusion. And on the positive side, to engage us in the devotional service of the devotees and ultimately the Lord. We can't directly serve the Lord. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj over and over again emphasized this very important point of service to the devotees. If we think we can directly serve the Lord, we'll never reach our goal. The access to service to the Lord, he said, Even to chanting the holy names, the gateway to pure chanting is service to the Vaishnavas or the devotees. By serving the Guru, one develops, sincerely that is, without ill motive or any other motivation, one develops a taste for chanting the holy name of Krishna. So we'll read now a little bit from Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhasa. Om Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Buddha Swayam Rupadam Dadati Svavadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Ragana Panditam Tam Sajivam. Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavadeshwari Vrishabhanusude Devi Pranamami Hare Panchakalpa Tarusya Kripa Sindhu Devicha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Iti Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvasesha Panyavari Vastachari Satarine. Sorry about that, I don't know. I think the book must have been on the computer pressing the buttons there.
That's correct.
I forgot where we were. Okay, we'll move on now. Puram Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtana. The night before Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj left this world, he asked another of his disciples to sing the Sikshastakam prayers. And this line here, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtan, which means glory to the congregational chanting of Krishna's names. Very glorious, and may it be glorified. It's the Yuga Dharma, the chanting of the holy name. And he said, this is the Gaudiya Mass sole object of worship. Sankirtan, the chanting of the holy name. This is the goal or the sole object of the Gaudiya Mass worship. To glorify the name, spread the name, serve the name, chant the name. I'll read a few things. To make us wholly devoted to Krishna's name, Sri Gaurangadev, it's the Lord Chaitanya, the combined form of Radha Govinda, Radha Krishna, came to this world. But if we disregard his teachings and show no interest in Sri Nam Seva, service to the name, we will never attain auspiciousness. Sri Nam Sankirtan is the best sadhana. If other sadhanas, sadhana means practice or engaging our senses in practical ways, regulating them for a higher purpose called sadhya or a goal. Sadhanas are given in scriptures or by spiritual authorities to help us to become purified, to help us to realize our identity and our eternal relationship with Krishna, etc. If other sadhanas or other practices help us in Krishna Sankirtan, then they deserve to be called sadhana. Otherwise, they are simply impediments to sadhana. Pretty strong statement, which of course has to be understood in perspective, you could say. In the big perspective, this is a statement of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, which is absolute. All other sadhanas, maybe in the beginning, we may not find that that's, let's say, evident so much. We may be more attracted to other practices, and not so much attracted to Sankirtan or congregational chanting. Sometimes, generally speaking, the attraction to congregational chanting is very common. I think a lot more than japa. Right? We're going to have blissful japa this evening. For those who don't usually, yes, if we're a little mature, every aspect of devotional service is blissful, but generally congregational chanting is very, even in the beginning stages, Jiva Goswami describes how one can experience bliss even in the preliminary stages of devotional service in the performance of congregational chanting. It's very special. This is Yuga Dharma. And the holy name, knowing or unknowing, people can feel pleasure of various kinds. It's not necessarily goal or the real fruition of chanting the holy names, but it is also a preliminary effect. But all other activities, he says here, if they don't help us to in Krishna Sankirtan, they don't help in Krishna Sankirtan or spreading Krishna Sankirtan, then they deserve to be called, they are obstacles or impediments to sadhana. Sri Krishna Nam Sankirtan is the emperor of sadhanas. We have many kings, kings meaning rulers of various departments or areas. But there's an emperor who is in charge of everything. So amongst all the processes of devotional service, even Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said clearly when he's asked several times, of all the processes of devotional service, which is the most important. And on every occasion, he sometimes will also add service to the devotees, but always the chanting of the holy names. And Jiva Goswami describes how all of our devotional activities should be accompanied with the chanting of the holy name. Whether it's deity worship, gardening, management, whatever it is, cleaning, whatever service we're fortunate to be engaged in relation with Krishna, should be accompanied with the chanting of the holy name. It is the only infallible sadhana. Infallible means there is no fall down, there is no impediment, there is no gap. It is the only infallible sadhana capable of bringing us to siddhi or perfection. Srimad Mahaprabhu did not speak of teaching archana or deity worship, but in Sikshastakam he taught Nam Bhajan. Although in Kali Yuga other limbs of bhakti should be performed, they should be accompanied by bhakti, denoted by kirtan. Krishna and Krishna Nam are not two entities. Krishna is his holy name, and the holy name is Krishna. Sometimes we thought it's the name of Krishna. Well, in one sense, you can understand that's okay, but actually it is Krishna. It's not, when we say the name of something, it's a label. You can change the label. The name remains the same, but the name may change. But in the case of Krishna, Krishna is, there's no difference between he and the name. Namachintamani Krishnas, Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha, Namanamano, Krishna and the name Krishna, that's one and the same. We just don't realize it because we're in the relative world here. Krishna is his holy name, and the holy name is Krishna Nam, is the son of Nanda, Shamasundara. The name Krishna is actually the son of Nanda Maharaj. Our only devotional service and duty is Sri Krishna Nam Sankirtan. This understanding is auspicious. because he himself installed deities, preached varnashram, the division of society which is favorable for the spiritual development for living entities. He used all kinds of other techniques to attract people to Krishna consciousness. And we'll see in a second, he also, even in the performance of Sankirtan, we see that, paraphernalia, musical embellishments, etc., can be used. They're not necessary, but they can be used to attract people to Kirtan. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explained, chanting Hare Krishna is postgraduate dharma. Dharma means the constitutional position of a living entity, but in our present stage we could say our practice, our constitution ultimately, but our present situation people call dharma, the religious activities that we perform in this world are often called dharma, but ultimately dharma is the eternal constitution of the soul. And chanting Hare Krishna is the postgraduate dharma. If you any let's say involvement in education, university education, you graduate, then you have a post-graduation. You go on to a master's degree or a PhD or something. You go on. So chanting Hare Krishna is the postgraduate dharma. It is not a means to an end. Many practices, especially in the field of religion and yoga and so on, are simply stepping stones. The holy name is not a stepping stone. It surely is a practice also, cultivation, but it is eternal. It's not that, okay, now I don't get to chant anymore. The symptom of advancement in Krishna consciousness, one of them, is that one will chant more. Not that we stop chanting, or that we minimize our chanting. Chanting Hare Krishna postgraduate. Just as you never weary or tire of calling your children's names every day. Parents call their children every day. Sometimes for various reasons they may tire, but generally no. When we chant the names of Krishna with love, we don't become jaded. Nama Gane Sada Ruchihi. Devotees are characterized by unceasing taste for reciting the holy names. We want to chant more and more. Here's another one. Hare Kirtan is the perpetual and natural function of all the faculties of the jiva in a state of freedom from all affinity to this changeable world, because the absolute truth is identical with Hari. Hari has to be served exclusively, Hari is the name of Krishna, constantly and by all faculties of the soul. All of our, whatever we got, our mind, our intellect, our body, etc. The only function of the voice is to chant Hare Kirtan, which is non-different and inseparable from simultaneous service to Hari and all the other senses. One who does not employ his voice incessantly and exclusively in chanting Hare Kirtan has no access to Hari Seva by any other means. Therefore Hare Kirtan must be chanted while being humbler than a blade of grass. Yeah. There can be no streak of worldly vanity or seeking after any worldly advantage. The only object should be to please Hari. Now that's a goal, you could say a practical sadhya in the performance of our devotional services. To cultivate, to understand this principle that everything should be to please Hari. And whatever we have, our faculties, are actually nothing but his energy. If we think they're my energy, and I'm going to use, I'm using them according to my will, then we're still, you could say, in a bound-up condition. We're still under the influence of Maya, the illusory energy. The gradual transformation from Atmendriya to Vishnendriya, seeing ourselves in the center to seeing Krishna in the center, is the practice of devotional service. That is given by those who are pure. They give us the practice of devotional service. those who know how to please Krishna. Kirtan performed for sensual satisfaction is not Hari Kirtan. Kirtan is not to be performed only through melodious musical tunes, chimes and the like. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was not asked us to be proficient in high-class music, nor well practiced in the ears of accomplished musicians. And Prabhupada would also, on several occasions, emphasize this point. That's not our business to become, some kind of professional musicians, etc. Yet, if you already are one and you can utilize it purely in Krishna's service, so be it. He has asked us to always perform Hari Kirtan, that which is meant for gratifying the mundane senses is not Hari Kirtan. That by which Krishna's senses are satisfied is Hari Kirtan. Any other quotes? We'll move on a little bit here. We go on to talk about various devious kirtans that people may perform, so on and so forth. Very common in Bengal, particularly. If ever you've been to Bengal, you'll be familiar with this. You see. And in terms of japa, although congregational chant and kirtan is the yugadharma, japa is also important practice for self-purification, for focusing our consciousness and purifying our consciousness. When we chant japa, we often experience that various anarthas come to the surface. During kirtan, it's almost like one is transcendental to the anarthas. Don't think about them. When chanting japa, have you ever noticed? On the beach, quite often. Material desires come up, unwanted emotions come up, etc. And japa particularly, Hare Krishna. Interesting little fellow on the book there. It's particularly for our own self-purification, our time. When we associate for long, long years with this material world, many lifetimes, we're very much, let's say, accustomed to embracing material objects of various kinds, subtle and gross. They manifest, or that's combined to form various philosophies and concepts and attachments within our hearts. Very strong, or not maybe very strong. When we associate with Hare Krishna, Radha Krishna, there may be a little struggle there in our hearts. When chanting japa particularly, we experience this. The purification is to continually refocus on hearing the holy name of Krishna. To hear the name. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, I was reading last night something. One of his disciples was preaching very strongly about attentive chanting. And Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, "You're preaching about it, but you're not chanting attentively yourself. How effective will this be? Physician, heal thyself." To apply these instructions are for me, they're not some lashing of others, they're for our own self. We have to apply them on our own hearts to hear the sound vibration. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj said, this is the reform that's required, not external reform. No one can ever externally reform this world. You have to reform, he said, our perception of the world by hearing this transcendental sound vibration. So this is a sign of purification. When these desires pop up in our hearts, this is a great opportunity. It's like weeds. If you don't know they're in the ground, you won't do much about it. When you see them, I gotta get this root out at the root, not just on the surface. So these various weeds in terms of spiritual life have to be uprooted. And Krishna uproots them by attentively hearing associated with, he says, pavitram, he purifies like the sun purifies a dirty place. So we're calling Krishna's name and we're somewhere else. So to hear the sound of Krishna's name, this is the sadhana, the purification. And as our heart becomes purified, as faith develops more and more and more, as our heart becomes purified, naturally we progress through the various stages. I was reading this evening how Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj was very much opposed to this idea that by hearing elevated topics in the preliminary stages of devotional service, one can move through the various stages of devotion. No, it is not like that. Shraddha is not born from hearing these elevated topics. Rather, by the progress of Shraddha, one can hear these elevated topics, or faith, when one's faith becomes stronger, when one progresses step by step through the path of devotional service. Automatically, the various stages, we move through the various stages of progress in devotion. It's not that many people, they want to hear Krishna Katha on an elevated platform. We hear it now and again, but not as a practice, as if we're on that platform of advanced devotional service. One must go through the stages of devotional service. Then Krishna reveals, step by step, he reveals the truth, he reveals himself. So we're going to go, because our time is, of course, a little short this evening. We're going to read now some of the wonderful, many unlimited quotes of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj. This is a nice one, which you can see here. Many of these were spoken in Dhaka in 1936 on one of his last preaching tours. Look within. Look within. Amend yourself. Rather than pry. Pry means poking our nose into, easy to do it. Looking for the faults in others. Look within ourselves, amend ourselves, rather than pry into the frailties of others. This is a process of devotional service, purification. Easy to see the fault in others, but there's an indication that there's something within ourselves that we need to look at. There is no peace or happiness in our worldly life. Circumstances create turmoil and annoyance. Just like we were talking about Dharma just now, Dharma meaning the constitutional nature of something, just like if we take metal, constitution may be hard, what else? Maybe cold, hard and cold. Or you take something like sugar, constitution is sweet. Take something like, chili powder, hot, spicy. That's just if sugar isn't sweet, then you'll say, this is not sugar. So the material world, the soul has constitution nature too. When we take the material world, this is the constitution. Turmoil and annoyance. It's the nature of this world. If you try to avoid it, by all means, people are struggling like anything to avoid it. But you can't avoid it. It's the nature of this world. A combination of the material modes of nature create turmoil and annoyance. Life is for the glorification of topics on Hari. If that is stopped, then what need is there to carry on life? No value. Shrama evi kevam. Waste of time. The real purpose of human life is to glorify the Lord. Those favoured by God find their paths set by thorns. As we were discussing the other day, with a thorn one removes a thorn. So these thorns can actually help remove the attachments which we have in this material world. There will be challenges within and without. We are put to test and trial in this world. Only those who attend the kirtan of the devotees can succeed. This is a safe place. God said there's no only safe place in this world is in kirtan. We are here on earth not to work as artisans for making big buildings with wood and stone, but to work only as messengers for the teachings of Sri Chaitanya Dev. Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj had built a beautiful temple in Bag Bazaar. Wasn't he, as if we shouldn't build anything. He built a beautiful temple in Bag Bazaar for the glorification of the Lord, so that devotees and public could come together and chant the holy names and do service, etc. But when he saw that the devotees were starting to cultivate materialistic perception, thinking this is my temple, I'm the owner here, etc., etc., he said, Prabhupada said, he said, I'd rather tear down the marble from the walls and use it to print books. Not that he wanted to do that, but because his disciples or his followers were developing, towards the last stage, some of them were developing possessive mentality, materialistic mentality. The purpose of the temple is to propagate the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. It's not a place for us to enjoy. It's a place to spread Krishna consciousness. It doesn't belong to us. If I could perfectly deliver even one soul back home, back to Godhead, I would think my mission, propagating Krishna consciousness, to be successful. Just one soul. Amazing. Just like Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj, from one person, our own Srila Prabhupada, one person basically, at least at that time, went around the world and spread Krishna consciousness. Be indifferent to bizarre gossips. Stick firmly to your cherished goals. No lack or impediment of the world will ever stand in your way, keeping the goal in mind, not being deviated. Let me not desire anything but the highest good for my worst enemy. Is one of his famous quotes. Of course, the devotee has no enemy, but sometimes people are inimical. They see the devotee as an enemy sometimes. So we should try to not cultivate this. Try to develop compassion. Even if it's not, let's say, genuinely sincere, but at least we should try to cultivate it. In this world of Maya, averse to the Lord, full of trials and tribulations, only patience, humility, and respect for others are our friends for Hari Bhajan. That's very nice. Trinada Pisa Nichina Travo Pisa Vishnu. The Lord Gaurasundar puts his devotees, is a very important one. Lord Gaurasundar puts his devotees in various difficulties and associations to test their patience and strength of mind. Success depends on their good fortune. Got to get the good fortune, blessings of the Vaishnavas. So this is to strengthen us. Different tests are there to give us strength on the path, committing ourselves more and more. Chant the Mahamantra loudly and with attachment. This will drive away inertia, worldly evils, and pests. They also drive them away. When we chant loudly, they run. But very much time, many times he would emphasize the importance of loud chanting, even of japa. That doesn't mean in the temple, but sometimes we have to chant a little loud to wake up. We're kind of in a dream state when we're chanting our rounds. Even in kirtan, sometimes we're like in another world. It's all about, being happy or something. Forget what we're doing. When faults in others misguide and delude you, have patience. Introspect. Find faults in yourself. Know that others cannot harm you unless you harm yourself. No one can harm us. When we forget Krishna and start putting ourselves in the center, etc., then we're actually harming ourselves. Because we're keeping ourselves away from Krishna. But yes, there will be situations where it appears that others are, behaving in ways which are unbecoming, etc. That's our chance to look within ourselves, to learn. We would say we can learn from every single living entity how we can purify our own hearts. Some lesson of every situation is to be learned. Something for our own self-purification. It's like today is the Tirubhav of Gaur Govinda Maharaj. We haven't much time to speak on other things, but a great Vaishnava who brought, let's say, awoken in the hearts of so many the beauty of devotional service, the absolute necessity of devotional service, the urgency of devotional service in so many ways, by his living example, his teachings, etc. And also learning how to tolerate. He would sometimes be asked questions, how did he say, tolerate, tolerate, tolerate. You have to learn to tolerate. There will be so many impediments in this world. After all, this interfacing with the material energy, so there may be so much friction, Kali Yuga particularly. Our span of life on earth is short. Our life will be crowned with success if the body wears out with constant discourses on Hari. Lord Govinda Maharaj left his body discussing Krishna Katha, Krishna's pastimes. Exactly, he was discussing, he's left his body. To transform the adverse desires of the jivas is the supreme duty of the most merciful. To rescue one person from the stronghold of Mahamaya is an act of superb benevolence, far superior to opening innumerable hospitals. I wish that every selfless, tender-hearted person of the Gaudiya Math will be prepared to shed 200 gallons of blood. How much blood do you have? How much blood have you got there? You've got 200 gallons?
What's a gallon, Maharaj?
8 pints. 4 liters, 4 or 5 liters.
4.
I have 2 gallons, maximum.
Huh?
2 gallons.
Maximum.
2 gallons. You've got to shed 200 gallons of blood for the nourishment of the spiritual corpus of every individual of this world. As we give our life for the sake of assisting the pure devotees to deliver the conditioned souls. Physical illness with Hari Bhajan is preferred to physical fitness without Hari Bhajan. Of course, we have to look after our health, no doubt. But the most important health is our spiritual health, our Hari Bhajan ultimately. We're going to get old, probably, if we live that long. Well, we're old now if we're going to leave before we get what we call old. Comes to everyone. Got to get ready, you know. Do not give up devotional service even if there are innumerable dangers, countless insults, endless harassment. Do not become disheartened that most people in this world do not accept the message of unalloyed devotional service. Never give up your devotional service and hearing and chanting about Krishna, which is your everything. Always chant the holy name, becoming more humble than a blade of grass and more tolerant than a tree. And this is from one of his last lectures, speeches. I have given anxiety to many people, as I have been compelled to speak genuinely truthful words, and as I have told people to worship Hari without any hypocrisy. There are possibly many people who even consider me to be an enemy, so that they may become eager to perform the sincere service of Sri Krishna. Freed from other desires and deceitfulness, I have given various types of anxiety to numerous people. One day or another, they will certainly be able to understand this. Taking a blade of grass between my teeth, I fall down and again pray that I may become the dust at the feet of Srimad Rupa, birth after birth. And this is the nature of pure devotee. He's not acting on his own account. He's in the mystery of the Absolute, and then representing his line of disciplic succession, empowered by our Parampara to say the connecting point for the living entities with the Absolute Truth through the Parampara. So whatever he speaks, whatever he does, whatever they do, whatever they speak, is directly coming from the Supreme Personality of God. They are the transparent via medias of the will of the Lord. Lord Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj has left us with oceans and oceans of nectar to get absorbed in, coming to us through our Srila Prabhupada, and so many aspects. And we don't have time. I was going to read quite a lot from his humbler than a blade of grass, 100 times removed. He would speak of 100 times removed. This is a devotee meaning They were the servant of the servant, 100 times and more. This is their nature. Those who have life can preach. You have to be alive for preaching. Even if nobody is there, he would say, that doesn't matter. We preach to the four walls. They were here. The sound vibration is not that we're just here to attract an audience. We're here to please Krishna. Kirtan would say is to please Krishna, not to please the audience. That may be there, but it's not the goal. The goal is to please Krishna. Whether it's kirtan or whatever service it is. The idea. And preaching. Glorification of the Lord. Okay, it's 8 o'clock and I don't want to go on any longer because normally we finish at 8 o'clock. But if you do want this series of books, Bhaktisiddhanta Vaibhav, compiled over many, many years, decades in fact, of great research. I know personally, Bhakti Vikas Maharaj was for decades I think he started in the late 80s, maybe 90s, and he was going everywhere. Look, all the disciples of Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj who were still present, searching documents in libraries and universities here and there, getting original copies of the Harmonist and various other literatures. Some of them were never made public. And so many places he went to get an authentic overview and understanding of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Maharaj and his mission. And by far and away, this is the most complete and thorough and accurate account of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj's life and teachings on which our movement is based. A very beautiful presentation. So if you do want copies of these, I don't know how much they cost, but I believe we can still get them. They're still available. Just have to order them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai Shri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Shri Prabhupada Ki
Jai.
Gaur Prema
Hari Bol.